Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. Grateful to you for joining us on our last show of the week. Thank you for being here. If you're here on the Two Way platform, you want to get in on our conversation tonight, please raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. And this is it's going to be a kind of a different show than usual. We've got different kinds of guests, and we're going to start with something a little unorthodox, not our normal starting point, which is tomorrow night, Madison Square Garden. Uh, there's a there's an event that is special. And it's special for anybody who thinks about Charlie Kirk and his legacy and his memory. So start off a little different tonight because we're lucky to be joined by somebody who's involved in the event tomorrow, a very good friend of Charlie's. Jack, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Mark, thanks
Uh,
so much for having me on.
couldn't be more honored. First, I ask everybody who's friends with Charlie, how are you doing? How are you dealing with life without him? How much is that weighing on you? And how, besides the event we're going to talk about tomorrow night, how are you incorporating his loss into your daily life?
And my standard answer for everyone who asks that, Mark, is ask me in a year.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's just something that there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot of questions, and it seems like there's always sort of some new narrative of the day to respond to regarding the case or regarding just so many different things that we have going on. And there's good and there's bad, and there's good days and bad days. But I would say as horrific as the whole thing has been, I think the team has really come together. And
yeah.
having Erica at the helm the way she is, and having her as that guiding point, it means a lot to everybody. And I don't know if we'd be able to do it otherwise. But you do what you do, and I just know that I know, Mark, that Charlie really thought the world of you, and he was always so excited to have you on his show. And I know that he was always sending us your clips, or if I was watching Two Way, which I do watch, I would say, "Oh, Charlie, did you hear what Mark said?" He go, "What do you say? What do you say, Jack? You got to tell me." And so he was a big fan, and just had a lot of respect for you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I did this so informally. For those you don't know, Jack Posobiec is a veteran and an extraordinary communicator. He's got a bunch of shows everywhere. Just tell people where you're, because every time I talk to you, you're doing something slightly different. Where are your shows now that you do?
Yeah, thanks. So mainly we're on Real America's Voice, so with Steve Bannon, and then so my show is the show that comes on after the Charlie Kirk show, and now obviously he's got sort of the rotating cast of producers that are carrying on the show, so we're up on after that.
Okay. So tomorrow night, the reason Jack is nice enough to spend a little bit of time with us here at the top. Tomorrow night, Madison Square Garden, an event I wish I could go to, but I'm out of town. It's a fight, UFC 322. Now I'm a fan, but not that big a fan. What does 322 mean?
Well, that's the number of each event
Yeah.
is sequential, basically.
Yeah. Okay. All
So
right.
it's
I didn't
like
realize.
Super
I've
Bowl
never noticed.
numbers and all that.
Understood. Never said that. Anyway, Charlie Berry had a great relationship with Dana White, who, of course, was at Charlie's memorial service in Arizona. Charlie once described Dana White as the best president of any sports league. I think that's at least arguably true. And tomorrow night, uh, you're going to do something special at the Garden. So just tell folks what you've got planned.
We are. So the plan is that myself and my good friend Benny Johnson, both of us are Turning Point contributors and have been for years. And we're going to be up there with Tony Bobolinsky, bringing my wife Tanya Tay, a whole bunch of the Turning Point Street team, and we're going to be giving out in Madison Square Garden, just blocks away from Times Square, right there in the heart of New York City, before the Mamdani takeover. We are going to be handing out 3,000 Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts, completely free of charge, and we're just hoping that everybody can wear them inside that arena and just get those shirts up. We had done this. I couldn't make it, but my brother went with Benny and Tony out to a Penn State game a couple of weeks ago, and they handed them out as well there. Of course, I'm a Temple grad. My father was the Penn State grad. Mark, you and I went to a Penn
Yeah.
State game, saw each other there last year. So, I wished I could have made that one, but I didn't. So we're going to be doing this tomorrow night, Madison Square Garden, 3,000 Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts. And I think it's going to be
Yeah.
great.
So if you happen to be going, look for Jack and everybody else handing out the shirts, and I'm sure it's going to be an emotional night because of that, and always whenever the events are at the Garden, because I had been to event at the Garden. They're quite incredible. Jack, so grateful to you for making time. Sorry, I'm going to miss tomorrow night. Look forward to seeing the pictures and hearing about your experience. And again, ask me in a year is a good answer, but we're all extremely concerned about everybody like you who have to soldier on every day and do what you do. And it's extremely admirable to watch you and everybody else who's involved in daily broadcasting under these circumstances. It's quite something. So really proud of you and how strong you've been throughout this, and grateful to you for spending a little bit of time with us.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate being here. And I did, by the way, reach out to the White House. I said, you guys think the president's going to be there tomorrow night?" And they said, "Well, he's currently scheduled to head down
Yeah,
Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago's
yeah.
open back in season, but you never know. You never know."
Never know. We might shot. Got it. He does have access to a plane.
Yeah,
Jack, good luck tomorrow. Again, look forward to hearing about it, and thank you for making time.
thanks, guys.
Take care. All right. Jack will be at the Garden, and we'll look forward to reading about that and hearing about that. All right. With us tonight to run through the news, Katy Balls, Washington editor of the London Times of London, who's been with us before. Rob Bluey, president executive editor of the Daily Signal. And then later on in the program, Larry Sanger, co-founder of Wikipedia. And we got a lot of questions about Wikipedia. If you want to get in on the conversation on any of this, please raise your hand. If you're here on the platform, if you're watching on X or on YouTube, please don't raise your hand, and please think about Jack and his T-shirts and how peace, love, and understanding should be the byword for all of us. And don't put any smack in the chat tonight. As you know, after the program, I spend several hours with AI running the chat through there and analyzing for smack, and it's still way too high. It's still much higher smack quotient than we're looking for. So please don't do that. All right, quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions, or to our guests rather, and again to your questions eventually. First sponsor tonight's our friends at Chef IQ. Thanksgiving's coming up, and frankly, as Mr. T would say, you'd be a fool to try to cook your turkey just by watching it and maybe setting the timer. The folks at Chef IQ have a wireless cooking thermometer, Chef IQ Sense, that raises the quality of your turkey, lowers the stakes, lowers the chance you'll make an error. You just put in the thermometer and then check your app. No more peeking, no more dried out turkey, no overcooked turkey, just perfectly cooked meals every time. Steaks, chicken, fish, whatever. Everybody I know who's tried this finds it to be almost foolproof. Almost everybody can mess something up. But anyway, go right now to chefiq.com, use the promo code two-way, 30% off. Small price to pay for perfect turkey. 30% off. Go to chefiq.com. Use the promo code two-way for 30% off. Chefiq.com. Spend more time with your guests, speaking at your phone, and not all that time in the kitchen. All right. We're going to bring in our guests, and they're going to help us talk through the news. And we're going to start with Katy Balls, who's modern day de Tocqueville. She's in the United States, foreigner, but with a keen eye, bring the outsider perspective, and yet Katy can talk. She can make Mork and Mindy references just like she's a native. You know what that even means, Katy? Mork and Mindy?
I'm just gonna plead the fifth. Is that
Yeah.
what we
Okay.
do?
Anyway, you can
That's
fake it.
American.
Can you name the starting lineup of the 1927 Yankees? How about that? No.
I think my
Um,
internet connection's really
Yeah.
unstable.
All right. So, Katy, while we bring in our other guests for a second, this whole controversy with the Beeb, that's what you call it there, right? The Beeb. Um, I was surprised that these two executives, one Deborah Turness used to work here in the States. I'm a little bit familiar with her. I was surprised they left. Did that end the controversy? How do you pronounce that word? You say it slightly different. Controversy.
Controversy. Yeah, we
Controversy.
call it the beep. We call
Yeah.
it auntie
Or is it
sometimes.
is it over now, or is it still
No.
raging?
It's not over, partly because it's Donald Trump, and therefore it wasn't enough to have two scalps. They obviously stepped down, I think, realizing that this was becoming quite a big scandal. And I think in America, everyone's focused on the editing of a speech, really, to put it together in a way that it misleadingly suggested that Donald Trump had directly incited violence among for Jan 5th. But that story was part of a dossier which had lots of incidents suggesting BBC bias on things like Israel Palestine. So they were facing a lot of questions that go beyond Trump. The reason it hasn't gone yet is because there's questions about how the BBC responds to this all, but there's also a $1 billion lawsuit. And the fact that Donald Trump has said he plans to sue what is the public service broadcaster in the UK, where legally you have to have the license fee. So is it the taxpayer who would be paying towards this? Means that this story isn't going anywhere. And today we had the BBC say that they have apologized to Donald Trump, which is what he wanted, but they say they don't want to give him any money. And we're waiting to hear what Donald Trump will say on that. But he has given an interview to perhaps what we might call the rival to the BBC, GB News, which is the
Yeah.
right-wing TV channel, which comes
Right.
out later tonight. So I
It's a
suspect
bit,
that will
it's a
be
bit
the
of
guy.
it's a bit of an upstart, that
Yes,
outfit.
it's not quite equal, but
Yeah,
they do not
yeah,
like the BBC. So
yeah.
it's an interesting choice by Donald Trump.
And of course, the other storyline that needs to be carried through is they got to get somebody to take the job to run the thing now, and that's not going to be easy. Katie, thank you for being here. Katie, repeat guest. Rob, this is your debut. Am I right?
That's right, Mark. Thanks for
All
having me
right.
tonight.
We're so happy to have Rob Bluey, president and executive editor of the Daily Signal. Katie, if you want to say anything to Rob, please address him as Mr. President, because he's the president of the Daily Signal. Rob, so happy to have you here. Grateful to you for making time. Tell people a little bit about how did you become the president of the Daily Signal, and for the sliver of our audience that doesn't know what the Daily Signal is, go ahead and tell them that as well.
Sure. Well, Mark, I came to Washington, D.C. I worked in conservative media for several years before founding the Daily Signal in 2014. The Daily Signal became an independent entity in 2024 because the White House revoked our press credentials. And we decided that that was the only way that we were able to get them back and to get access to Congress and the other important institutions that we cover in Washington, D.C. would be to become our own independent media company. So that's what we did. We focus on the policy debates in Washington. We try to put a human face on those policy issues and tell the American people why they matter in their daily lives. And so it's been a fascinating year and a half about since we've embarked on this change. And Donald Trump certainly keeps us quite busy with all the news to cover.
And so you tell people again, podcasts, TV shows, website, glossy magazine. Where can people see your content?
Absolutely. DailySignal.com. We're on all the social media channels at Daily Signal. We do have several podcasts, including a daily show from Victor Davis Hanson, the great historian from the Hoover Institution. And yes, lots of video content as well. Obviously, that's the way things are going. We have a reporter based at the White House, Elizabeth Mitchell, a couple on Capitol Hill that are tracking all the movements there, and folks increasingly in state capitals, because that's where we see a lot of action happening. So we're going through a great growth phase right now with the Daily Signal, and we'll love your audience to check us out.
All right. Again, check it all out, and we're going to hit the news, but I'll just say this: I'm embarrassed to say, because he's an incredible figure. Rob, I've never met Victor David Hanson, but he talks about me on his show with some regularity, because I have a lot of friends who listen every day, and they say, "Hey, Mark, he talked about you again." So, Rob, let's the three of us have lunch.
Perfect. Well, we might have to go to California, Mark.
Yeah, no, I know he lives in California, but we can fly out there. Katie was just in
Sounds good.
California for a wedding. Katie, did you fancy California when you were out there for your wedding?
I did.
Yeah,
I also
yeah.
really like Victor Davis Hanson, so I'll crash the
Okay,
lunch.
all four of us will go. All right. Once again, Congress is gone, and the big news of the day once again was about Epstein. Epstein. Still waiting to see what the over/under is in the House vote. How many House Republicans will vote for the bill that's been will be put on the floor through discharge petitions? I keep hearing people say 100. I hear people say 25. And the reason we think that matters, we talked about it on the morning meeting this morning, is will John Thune be pressured to vote, to hold a vote, or will he just kill it? So that's still percolating. But here, and news organizations are still reading through all the emails. So there's a second, third wave of, oh my goodness, look at what Epstein either got or received. I read something today about somebody I know in there, and I'm trying to reach him to find out what's up with that. But the bigger thing that happened today was the president, who doesn't believe in playing defense. When he's on defense, he believes in playing offense. The president today, and this is when people say the president violates norms. in any previous administration, if the president of the United States went on social media or it's communicated and said, I want my Justice Department to investigate my political enemies to create a distraction, it would be an uproar. It would be incredible. And instead, we've seen this movie before. People are just like, but that's what the president did. Number one, please. Early this morning, the president went on Truth Social, and this is a CNN headline. Trump says he's asking Justice Department to investigate Epstein's ties to slew of high-profile figures, Democratic figures, including Bill Clinton, including Larry Summers. For some reason, he's throwing J.P. Morgan Chase in there. And again, for any previous attorney general, it'd be a crisis. They'd go into a bunker. They would try to avoid answering. They would say, "Oh my goodness, this is the whole independence of the Justice Department is being called into question." And instead, the Attorney General said, "Yeah, she's having the U.S. Attorney in New York look into all this." Reid Hoffman, the Democratic donor, is also on the list. Here's the Truth Social post number 2 that set all this off. It's a long one. Now that the Democrats use the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures, I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great partners, patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him. This is another Russia scam. Russia scam, with all arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his island. Stay tuned. Here's where I want to start, Katie. That's setting the table here. There's some things people say all the time. Like they'll say, I know who leaked something. And they'll just say, tell me with certainty. That's the person who leaked it. Everybody told me with certainty. If Donald Trump were implicated in the Epstein documents, the Biden administration would have leaked them. Everybody told me that. They said 100%. And I said, that's not what Merrick Garland would have done. But now, as in some of the documents are out, he's pretty implicated, not in the illegality, maybe nothing wrong at all, but his name's in there in ways that are at least sus, as the kids would say. So, Katie, where does all this go now? Will the Justice Department investigate? Is Trump still in any danger? How do you see the landscape here on all this?
It definitely feels like the temperature is going up on it. And obviously, Donald Trump can celebrate the end of the government shutdown, but it also seems as though it brings with it a whole fresh series of potential problems for him. And you look at, as you say, the files release, so 20,000 files plus this week, which felt a little bit like flooding the zone, as it meant you had so many different stories coming out. Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, one of my own, obviously back in the news. Then you had stories about the Democrats. But as you say, Donald Trump is in so many of these emails. And it does lean into the fact that he has said he had this historic friendship, but it's quite a big friendship. And clearly it weighed on Epstein's mind a lot in the time after it. I think with the vote on Tuesday, the fact that the White House tried and failed to convince Republicans earlier this week to not side with the Democrats, the fact they called them into the Situation Room, quite like it's a very visual thing to do, to then not be able to get what you want. Does suggest a slight, not having a grip on it, which is why I do think going on the offensive today with that probe, it suggests there's almost an acceptance now that they can't control it in the way that they wanted to, and they're going to have to try different things, and Donald Trump's going to try and fight, and it almost feels a little bit a plague on all your houses. If I have to go down to a degree, I'm going to bring everyone else down with me.
Yeah, Rob, one of the things so interesting, and again, people are still reading through because there's so much. Epstein, in the context of Trump's presidential campaign in 2015, 2016, kind of seems to have put himself out there as kind of like a Trump whisperer or Trump, aficionado, expert, interacting with all these powerful people about, well, Trump this, Trump that. And he seemed to, at least in his emails, have a very low opinion of Trump. So what's the portrait that's emerging of Epstein's posture towards Trump that we've seen so far?
Yeah, well, certainly I saw that Trump also posted on Truth Social the Jesse Waters monologue from last night, in which he makes that very point that this Jeffrey Epstein characterization of Trump should actually play to Trump's benefit. You have this individual who's committed all of these heinous activities, and all of a sudden he doesn't particularly like Donald Trump. So the White House maybe should lean more heavily into that. Yes, I agree with Katie on this. I mean, I think that the strategy that the White House has employed from the start has been they haven't had solid footing. Remember, there was the episode with the social media influencers where they had the binders and they faced blowback for that. And then obviously those members of the Trump administration who were previously advocating for a lot of transparency all of a sudden seem to take a different tact on this. And so maybe actually putting everything out there and letting the American people, obviously within reason, you don't want to have a situation where individuals who committed no wrongdoing and are named are suddenly now implicated. So I think there still probably has to be some sort of review, Mark, that the Justice Department goes through to ensure that that doesn't happen. But typical Trump, as you shared with that headline in True Social post, I am not surprised that he is going after Democrats and those who he considers his political enemies. And let's face it, Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House, I think, 17 times during Bill Clinton's presidency. So there's a lot of fodder there for probably Trump to mine and throw at his opponents.
Very well said. Brilliant. I want to polymarket a couple things that our partners at Polymarket have two Polymarkets up. Katie, back in the UK, did you ever go to Ladbrokes? You ever
Yes.
go to Ladbrokes, put down a fiver? Rob, you ever been to Ladbrokes?
I have not, no.
Yeah, so you go and you put down a fiver on whatever. And now you don't need to go to Ladbrokes. You just go on Polymarket. It's coming soon to the US, by the way. We'll have more to say about that. But for now, let's look at a couple of Polymarkets connected to the Epstein matter. Here's a question. Will the House pass the Epstein disclosure bill this year? Number 4. And obviously, the latest developments have gotten us up here. You can see back last month or month before, it was down in the low, in the teens, and now, of course, 93% confidence odds that this is going to pass. And then a second Polymarket, and I'm really interested in this one. Also, will Trump pardon Maxwell by the end of next year? Will Trump pardon Maxwell by the end of next year? Only 19% odds, according to Polymarket bettors. I continue to believe, based on reporting, spidey sense, fingertip feel, gut instinct, and a can of sardines, that he's going to either pardon or commute or sentence. Katie, thoughts on pardoning your country lady, Ms. Maxwell? You think that Polymarket wagers have it right, or are the odds higher than that?
Yeah, another Brit making news along with Andrew. I think the fact she was moved to that low security prison, and then obviously we had leaked emails about how that's a much better experience for her, and then you're hearing about potential perks. It does suggest as though this is possible. I think when you look at those 20,000 emails, one of the things that comes up is, oh, Trump's the dog that didn't bark, and she's talking about that, and therefore it does feel as though she is someone who Trump potentially will want to keep on side.
Thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I don't know if he would do that. I think that probably complicates things politically a little bit for him and Republicans. To the point, there's no question in my mind that the Polymarket has it right when it comes to the House vote. I think, as you talked about earlier, Mark, the big question is whether or not there are enough Republicans who support the measure that puts the pressure on John Thune in the Senate. At this point, I would say no. John Thune is not going to bring this up. He probably is facing some pressure from the White House not to do that. But as we know, the Democrats will probably stand united on this one. And there may be a handful of Republicans who want to put that pressure on Trump. So I just don't know ultimately if it goes anywhere in the Senate. And I don't particularly see Trump pardoning Maxwell at the end of the day.
Interesting. All right, we'll see. We're freelancing tonight. We're ad hocery because we've got a new surprise guest. The producers don't even know he's coming. So stand by in just a minute. We'll get to that. But in the meantime, a quick another word from another sponsor. And this is our friends at Cozy Earth who make the best stuff. Cozy Earth is having a crazy sale right now. Massive discount on everything they do. Go to cozyearth.com, promo code 2way for 40% off. This is your towels, your blankets, your sheets, your bubble cuddle blanket, your jogger pants, t-shirts, everything, the whole site, 40%. It's Black Friday, come early. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way for 40% off. This is great stuff, affordable, comfortable, and the towels and the sheets. I've said this before. You'll use them as towels and sheets, but then you'll just want to go sit down and watch the telly, and you'll just grab them and you'll just embrace them. You'll just sit with them because they're so soft. They're so wonderful. They're not like anything I've ever had. And again, I'm wearing the pants right now. Best pants I've ever owned. Black Friday comes early. CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code two-way for 40% off everything on the site. You won't want to miss it. All right. Again, kind of a crazy format today. So we're going to go to questions now, but then we're going to have another guest. Reynolds, come on in. Again, raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. Reynolds, welcome in. Tell folks where you are and what's on your mind for our guests after you unmute.
Yeah. So one, I don't think he's on pardon, Giselle. It just would look really bad.
Yeah.
But my question is about the BBC and how they portray the Reform UK party. It seems like they are really sort of trying to paint them too far to the right. And I wanted to know what her take on that is, the portrayal of the Reform UK. Instead of being a legitimate party, seems like they're trying to delegitimize Farage as a possible prime minister of England in the next year or two when they hold elections.
Great question, Reynolds. Katy, can you switch your mind back over to home and weigh in on that?
Well, I know Nigel Farage fairly well, particularly from my old job, because I was political editor at The Spectator in Westminster. And if he were here, he would certainly say, you're completely right. The BBC is biased against reform. I think that when it comes to election coverage, they have very kind of strict rules about, the vote share a party has to get in order to be included in a debate, included to get these things. So sometimes there is a system behind it. But I certainly think if you look at the dossier, which is, the Trump thing was just one part of it, this sense that there is a left-wing bias is something that often comes up against the BBC. And there is a feeling amongst Reform staffers that they get quite frustrated, that they feel as though, there's an over focus on if they have one bad candidate, then that becomes the main story instead of looking at the policies. So they don't feel as though they get the same treatment as the government. But there is a slight thing in Britain where every political party tends to accuse the BBC of bias. I think Reform probably has more it can point to at the moment because it is that smaller party. Farage has a long history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one follow-up question. I read an
Yes,
article probably a couple of weeks ago. They had like local election or council election, I think that's what you call them in Britain, where it seems like the Tories were trying to stop elections from happening. They thought the Reform UK was going to sweep the council vote. So is there any truth that the Tories might try to, work with Labour on trying to suppress, Reform UK, or sort of like what France did, where they, the two parties ganged up on Marie Le Pen's party. I forgot the name of that party. Did the Tories and Labour do something like that in England or not? And thank you.
Yeah, I think it is something you'll see, but you'll never see them publicly saying they've done it because it would hurt both sides if Labour and the Tories looked like they were working together. But there's lots of ways where there are lots of times it is in both the interests of the Labour Party and the Tory Party to crush and diminish reform. Labour like to talk up reform as a way of crushing the Tories, but the local elections, you're completely right. But Labour also wanted to delay various local election results. They used the fact that the rules were changing around elections to basically delay certain councils by a year, and both Labour and the Tories had an interest in that because Reform's doing so well in the polls. So I think it's age-old political tricks. Every party does what it can to hurt its main rival, but Reform is a threat to both Labour and the Tories. In the last general election, it was a much bigger threat to the Tories. Now it's a big problem for both.
Reynolds, thank you. Katy, thank you for sharing all that expertise. Tammy, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Rob and for Katy.
Hey, I live in Michigan, and Mark, I have a two-way.
Oh, look at that. Fairway and green. Very handsome. How do you like it?
I like it. I bought a couple things. Yeah,
All right,
and I have
awesome.
Cozy
Thank you
Earth
for
again. See, Cozy Earth.
All right, there you go. All
Mark,
right. You're keeping us in business, Tammy. Thank you.
Trying to. So I had a question with two things, I guess, on the shutdowns. Can President Trump issue an executive order so the government cannot shut down? either during regular season or even take the 8 weeks off. And the other question I have is on mortgages. The government shouldn't meddle in mortgages or anything. If you want to talk about interest rates, that's one thing. But I've read this book, which you can't read it, but it's The Housing Boom and Bust by Thomas Sowell, which essentially says the last time the government intervened, it created the boom and the bust with wrong intentions. And it's the same issue today. To me, I look at it's your local legislation, it's the state, rules, regulations, and even some of the climate policies that are impacting unaffordability in housing and basic supply and demand. And to me, it's like they need to leave it alone and stop trying to fix the issue and explain why it costs so much more to live in one state versus another.
Yeah, those are two great questions. Rob, why don't you handle the first one? Can the president just do an executive order saying the government stays open?
Yeah, Tammy, thank you for both of those. I don't believe the president can. However, I will tell you that Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin has legislation that he would like to, that he's championed, I think, for a number of years, that would essentially, if the government does not pass the spending bill by the September 30th deadline before the October 1st fiscal year starts, then it would automatically trigger one. So you wouldn't be in a situation where the government would have to close down. You would just continue to just on the previous year's continuing resolution. Seems like it's common sense to me. The other solution that I've heard floated is that you do this on a 2-year cycle so that you don't have to, there's no way Congress should be able to pass the 12 appropriations bills. But when's the last time they actually did that? We probably are going back, 20 years, Mark? It is ridiculous that they can't get their job done. So if you move to a 2-year cycle, maybe it's a more practical solution.
Yeah, and Rob, do you want to tackle the mortgage question as well?
Well, yeah, definitely. Look, I have a 30-year mortgage. Looking back on it, I regret that I didn't do a 15, because when you look at the interest calculations, and that's why I think you saw even a lot of conservatives, Dave Ramsey type people, say, what are we talking about doing a 50-year mortgage out of the government? This is just going to be so much more interest payments that are going to the banks as opposed to the savings that the American people could have. So yes, I'm all for getting the government's hands out of this business to the extent that we can. And I hope that we can also reduce some of the regulations that go into home building. You've heard J.D. Vance talk a lot about that over the course of the past few days. And I hope the Trump administration is serious about making some of these moves.
All right, Tammy, thank you. All right. Again, a crazy quote episode. Joined now by Adam Wren of Politico. Some of you may be familiar with Adam's work, some of you not. It's so hard to distinguish yourself as a journalist these days because there's so much, right? There's so much content, there's so many outlets, so many things out there. Adam Wren is having just an extraordinary run as a reporter. Adam, where do you live?
Carmel, Indiana, just at northern Indiana.
Well, welcome. Adam, you're just going to get a taste of Adam tonight, but Lori's going to book Adam to come back next week for a full episode. And Adam and I communicate because I'm just a huge fan of what he's done. He writes their playbook, their flagship morning product, once a week, right? Maybe sometimes more, but on Fridays. But he just is covering the hell out of his beat. So, for instance, the 3 stories right now, there's ongoing struggle between Indiana State House Republicans and the White House about whether the party will redistrict and pick up 2 seats, right? It's 2 seats potentially for the Republicans. And the Indiana legislators have resisted. The vice president of the United States has flown to Indiana twice to try to make this happen. And Adam's covered that story. It just laps ahead of everybody else. Second, incredible thing this morning he had about Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, going to Indiana, right?
Kansas City.
Is it Indiana? Kansas City. Sorry, Kansas City, to do this focus group to watch. And she's trying to figure out a way to bring the party together, big tent. It's an incredible piece. It's available for free. Go to Politico and read it about how she went and watched a focus group and then talked to Adam about it. And then finally, Adam, tell the third thing. Everybody knows what being loomered is. When Laura Loomer goes after you, Adam today, first person in the history of humanity to be loomered in a positive way. Adam, tell people what happened today with you and Laura Loomer.
Yeah, so essentially, Laura Loomer checked in with her, have been following her for a while after the Epstein situation sort of really blew up this week. And essentially, she said at the time that she predicted this past summer, essentially, that this would consume the president's second term, and that it would be very similar to Russiagate. She told me that back in July of this year. And so I checked it again with her this week, and she said that essentially she was right, but not because there was something there, but essentially because the dominant media, as Mark would call us, have continued to cover it in a way that is reminiscent of Russiagate, in the sense that people on the MAGA side don't believe there's any significant connection beyond what came out this week to Epstein and with Trump. And so essentially she came out today and said, look, I was right. And not only was I right in telling Adam this for Playbook, but essentially Donald Trump has taken my talking point in his Truth Social post this week, essentially saying that, this is Russiagate. And that's what Donald Trump said today. And so Laura Loomer was essentially saying, yeah, this is right. And Trump is taking my talking points and using them for his benefit.
So Adam is basically a Loomer whisperer, which no one is. Brilliant. Katie, any questions you want to ask Adam about the listless Slotkin focus group, about the Loomer matter, or about the Indiana legislature? The floor is yours if you'd like to.
Yeah, I suppose on the Indiana one, we saw it today, and quickly lots of the MAGA folks saying this is the rhinos, this is the fault of the old school Republicans. What do you think's really behind it? Is it a sense of people who don't want Trump to succeed, like someone MAGA would tell you, or is it a bit more complicated?
Yeah, it's
Great
more
question.
Very good question. Yeah, it's more complicated. I mean, Roderick Bray, who is the Senate President pro tem, he is a Republican in the mold of former Governor Mitch Daniels. He believes in small c conservatism, local control, and he has been resistant to this effort from the White House since July. His father was a state senator. His grandfather was a member of Congress, and he believes in institutionalism and thinks that it's not a good idea to have the White House telling a local a legislature what to do here. But even MAGA people who are sympathetic to President Trump's call to do mid-cycle redistricting across the map are saying that the White House really got Indiana wrong. Indiana is an I state like Iowa. There's an Iowa stubbornness that exists in Indiana where Republicans don't like to be told what to do from the federal government, even if it's something that plays to their interest and their concerns. And so they think that the White House got this wrong, that they were a little bit too heavy-handed in having Air Force Two roll in with Vice President Vance not once but twice. And then also a number of Indiana lawmakers visited with Trump in August and essentially went to the Oval Office. Roderick Bray, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House. Which really interesting here on a human level is that the Speaker of the House of Indiana's daughter works in the White House press office as a deputy to Caroline Leavitt. And so there's some, interpersonal drama here playing out, but it's super fascinating. And I just don't see this going anywhere. The same thing happened in Kansas. And so this is a significant defeat for the president in the reddest of red states, in a state that essentially, as Mark knows better than anybody, Indiana delivered the 2016 Republican primary to Donald Trump. Mark was at the governor's residence doing a stakeout at the time, waiting to see who Mike Pence would endorse. And, Indiana put Trump essentially onto a glide path to the nomination in 2016. And now it's sort of thumbing its nose at him.
Yeah. You just heard in Adam's description in response to Katie's great question. One of the reasons he's such an incredible reporter is he's interested in process and all that, but he really brings characters to life. He really writes about these players in a way that is compelling and three-dimensional. And there's so many younger reporters who just don't do that. Rob, a question for Adam about his professional love affair with Laura Loomer, about Indiana, or about the Slotkin thing, whatever you wish.
Yeah, let me ask you about Slotkin, but Adam, let me first thank you for joining my Daily Signal colleague Tony Kinnett, the fellow Hoosier.
Tony's great. I love Tony.
He's a fan of yours, and Tony has a show every night for any people who want to go from two-way here to watch the Tony Kinnett cast. But what I'd ask Adam is, obviously Slotkin is part of this mix that's some see as the future of the Democratic Party, others, probably don't, given some of her political leanings. So where do you see this particular episode going, and how does that inform the direction that the Democrats take heading into the midterms?
Adam, before you answer two things, sorry, Katie needs to go. She's nice enough to give us an extra 10 minutes. So Katie, thank you for being here. We love having you. Please come back soon. And just to put a little more context around Rob's great question, Adam, of course, asked Alyssa Slotkin, like, are you here, the senator from Michigan here in Kansas City, because you're thinking of running for president, which has been much discussed, and she's got all these projects going on, which you would think she's doing it because she wants to run for president. So with that additional context, Adam, thoughts on Rob's great question?
Yeah, I mean, the conventional wisdom, Rob, for a long time has been that there's a woman in Michigan who wants to run for president in 2028 as a Democrat. And it turns out, that a lot of Michigan Democrats are saying that that person is no longer Gretchen Whitmer. That Whitmer, because of the way that she's worked with Trump and Trump 2.0, has sort of soured on the idea of running in 2028. And that the person now who Michigan Democrats think is most likely to run for president from their state is none other than Alyssa Slotkin. She is someone who, won last year in November in a battleground state that Trump won in as well. And, Chuck Schumer picked her to give the response to Trump's joint session of Congress earlier this year in February. And she's never really stepped out of the spotlight since then. She's someone that other members in the House, members in the Senate, people who aren't from Michigan call to kind of take her temperature on key issues like how they should respond to the shutdown deal on Sunday. Her phone was burning up as other colleagues were calling her to see what she was thinking. Of course, she's someone who's been critical of Schumer on the shutdown. And I really think that she is the person right now who is most likely to run for president if you exclude Traverse City's own Pete Buttigieg in Michigan. I think she's the Democrat most likely to run. And she didn't say no, that she's not interested in running at all. She simply said that, she wants to see a more 21st century approach to leadership and that it might not be her, but that she wanted to be part of that project.
I don't want to steal all your secrets because there's proprietary, but you were the only reporter invited to go watch the focus group, right?
That's
how
right.
do you do that? How do you get that access?
So, this was a project of Majority Democrats. Majority Democrats are a new group. They have a number of members, people like, the New York City operative Liz Smith is involved, people like Jake Auchincloss, the Massachusetts congressman, people like Aftab Paravel, the mayor of Cincinnati, all of these people who I've covered for a long time. They want to show sort of these messy conversations that Democrats are willing to have. And what's fascinating to me about this, Mark, is that the kinds of leaders, the Democratic leaders who came up in this conversation with voters who sat out voting last year in November 2024, but who have voted in the past, are people like Bill Clinton, blue dog, Democrat, a moderate Democrat, centrist. They want to see people like that return to the fore. And so Slotkin is having these kinds of messy conversations. I mean, I was at this conversation yesterday, and people who voted for Barack Obama were welcoming the idea of the National Guard coming to Kansas City to help get crime down. They were complaining about unauthorized immigrants taking their jobs. And so it's not the kind of conversations that you would expect Democratic leaning voters to be talking about. Slotkin gave me listened.
Yeah, Rob, did you notice he didn't tell us how he got invited?
Yeah,
he skipped right over that.
So, Mark, let me just say one point on the focus groups. We worked with Patrick Raffini at Echelon Insights in the 2024 cycle, and he set up focus groups for us in Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Phoenix, and they were incredibly valuable. I think more reporters would benefit from sitting in the room and seeing how these things play out. It certainly opened my eyes to some of the underlying issues that you don't necessarily see in those quantitative polls. And so, kudos to you for getting in there.
I'm a huge fan of focus groups. I used to host a weekly show of focus groups with 4 Trump voters and 4 Biden voters, and it's amongst the best things I've ever worked on. Okay, so again, unorthodox episode. Adam, couldn't be more grateful to you for coming on quick notice to talk about that stuff. And again, go read Adam's piece. It's not behind a paywall. Go to the Politico playbook. It's brilliant if you want to understand Slotkin. But also, he wrote. It's not easy to write up a focus group in this kind of textured way. Go read what he wrote about these voters who sometimes some of them hadn't voted in years, and they're not super interested in politics. But what they say is so resonant. And Adam, I'm just a huge fan of all the stuff you're doing. And every time you do something, it's special. And that's not true of most people. So we're going to have you back very soon. Very grateful to you for coming tonight.
Thanks, Mark. Enjoy two-way.
Thank you. All right. So now Rob and I are here with you, and we're going to move to another whole thing here. Wikipedia. So please raise your hand if you want to get in the conversation about that, because we've got an extraordinary guest with us tonight. Another person that just couldn't be more grateful for making time to be part of this episode. And I consider him an historic figure. I do. And I'm looking forward to meeting him with you. So without further ado, I'm hoping he's here. Is Larry here? Let's see. Go to my magic board here. Is Larry here? Is he not here yet? Here I am introducing him. He's not here. Somebody's going to help me. Is Larry here?
We're looking. Hold on.
Okay. All right. Anyway, while we wait, Rob, do you have a Wikipedia page?
I do have a Wikipedia page, yes.
You do. And is it accurate?
I think for the most part. I mean, I don't think I'm high profile enough, Mark, to elicit a lot of the comments. But I will tell you that I'm quite aware of, you know, some other pages that get a lot of attention, and I've worked with others in the conservative movement who understand the ramifications if you have editors in Wikipedia who are certainly opposed to what you're trying to accomplish and craft that information in a way that is harmful to your reputation.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with us now, an historic figure as far as I'm concerned. Larry Sanger has invented something which is one of the most significant things invented in the digital age. He's a little bit younger than I am, and initially worked as an analytic philosopher. Larry, is that what you were? An analytic philosopher? I don't even know what that is. What is an analytic philosopher?
Oh, well, it's just the philosophical tradition of England and the United States, basically. Tends to use a lot of logic.
Got it. Anyway, Larry, very grateful to you for making time. And I know tonight I will become the first person ever to tell you with a little bit of edge in my voice that my page is filled with false things. You've never heard that before. I know. Just kidding. Larry, explained how the original vision you and your co-inventors had for Wikipedia. How does that compare to what it is today?
It's pretty different. My original vision of Wikipedia was a resource that anyone could contribute to that would represent views from all around the world, from different religious and political perspectives. That is essentially a giant bazaar of knowledge and opinion, of course. And what we have now, in short, I would say, is more of a tool of propaganda for the establishment. And I never would have expected that in 2002 when I left.
Yeah. So you haven't been involved since 2002.
That's right.
Yes, I've been no connection. It's a nonprofit still. I know you started as a nonprofit, right?
No, it actually started as a for-profit.
Started as a for-profit,
yes.
And then it became a nonprofit.
That's right.
At some point, yeah. Okay, so I had it opposite. I had it backwards. Why wasn't your vision realized?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think ultimately. It wasn't my. I was paid to start free encyclopedias for BOMIS, the parent company of Newpedia and Wikipedia, which was basically our second draft.
Right.
Jimmy Wales and his two partners were the owners of the platform, and my job was simply to get the thing started on their behalf. So ultimately, it wasn't up to me. Story of my life, really. I've started a lot of things that I'm not responsible for now.
So when you say it's a tool of the establishment, propaganda for the establishment, most things on Wikipedia have nothing to do, I would say, with establishment versus anti-establishment. You know, you go on Wikipedia and read about blazing saddles. That's got nothing to do with the establishment, or cherries or roses, right? So are you just saying in the political space that's where the establishment is ruling?
Anything that the culture war touches. So I like to say that I have actually advanced the following idea in my 9 theses on Wikipedia, which you can find on larrysanger.org. That Wikipedia works with a framework which I describe as GASP, which is globalist, academic, secular, and progressive. Now, individually, those things might not be bad, but together they represent a certain point of view. And whenever they, well, touch on any issue, whether it be of politics or philosophy or science or religion, then the resource is going to reflect a particular position. So the
Right.
article about Yahweh, the name of my God, represents a secular academic understanding of the origin of the name of my God, and it doesn't represent mine. In fact,
Right.
mine is barely not represented at all in the
So
article.
Larry, run through GASP again. Globalist. What are the
Uh,
other?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Just recite what GASP stands for again. It's globalist,
Sure. Globalist, academic,
academic,
secular, and
secular,
progressive.
and progressive. So in your original vision, because the original vision, as I understand it, included the notion that it could be edited by different people, right?
Of
That was the
course.
whole idea of it. So what's led to those GASP having the dominant voice? Why don't people who are people of faith or people who aren't globalists, why aren't they on there editing, changing it in the ungasped direction?
Um,
Did that
I mean,
happen
it's a good
organically?
question.
Happen organically, or do the people who run it somehow favor the gasp voices?
There's different theories about that. Um, some would say that basically, and in fact, this is what I usually say, that the establishment early on saw that Wikipedia could be manipulated and used in order to manipulate public opinion. So, two of the first outlets to report about Wikipedia were the New York Times and MIT's Technology Review.
Right.
And so, sometimes Wikipedia is called the encyclopedia that Google built because
Right.
right away, Google was pushing a lot of traffic. Every time the Google spider would make a pass through, it happened monthly back then, there would be a new influx of activity on the platform. And it just grew as a sort of positive feedback loop with Google. Um, some say, of course, that most of the intellectuals who are active on the internet generally are left-leaning. I
Right.
guess that's
And
true.
and secular. Rob, question for Larry.
Yeah, Larry, I will ask you about the sourcing or the citations. My understanding is that news outlets like ours at the Daily Signal and others are not permitted to serve as citations or references for Wikipedia articles. Does that contribute to the bias that you see as well?
I think it definitely has. I mean, let's be, because I'm sure people are going to be very critical of my answer, your question here. Let's be clear about what we're talking about. So on Wikipedia, there is a certain list of sources called the perennial sources page. If you just go to Google and type in Wikipedia perennial sources, it will come up at the top, and it has various news sources, like, of course, the Daily Signal and, CNN, the New York Times, Le Monde, and whatever. They're all listed there, and they have different colors. The green lit ones you're free to use without attribution. The ones that are yellow, you are allowed to use unless there's a better source available, which there often is, at least by their lights. If it's red, you're really not supposed to use it at all, except perhaps to back up a claim made about the source itself or the people who write for it. So the bottom line is that since about 2015 or so, and it's been very gradual, the Wikipedia community has just taken down the ability to use more and more sources. And of course, if you're unable to use the New York Post, for example, and the New York Post is the only source that's reporting about Hunter Biden's laptop, then
Yeah.
there won't be any facts about that in Wikipedia, and that was the
Right.
case.
Right. Amazing. All right. Stand by. We'll sneak in one more sponsor, and then we're going to go to community questions. We may run a little bit over. I'll warn our affiliate stations right now about that. So stand by, gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. Last sponsor of the night, CB Distillery. Go to cbdistillery.com. 25% off if you use the promo code two-way for those nights where you can't sleep, or maybe you're a little bit sore after working out, or maybe you're just feeling a little bit off, mood a little bit off. Do what over 2 million people have done. Use the products of CB Distillery. Imagine waking up rested and ready for the day, no aches or pains. That is what has worked for so many others. CB Distillery products work with your body, not against it. It's clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. So again, right now, a incredible discount available to the two-way community. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code two-way, 25% off your entire purchase for better sleep, less stress, and feeling good in your own skin. Again, cbdistillery.com. The promo code is two-way. 25% off again, cbdistillery.com, promo code two-way. Kelly, welcome in. Thank you for your patience. Unmute. Question for Larry and Rob.
Wait,
Wikipedia. Go ahead, Kelly.
hi. Oh my goodness, I have so many questions. What a good surprise, Larry. Well, I'll just start by saying I saw a very, very short interview with one of the co-founders the other day. But I have just a couple of questions. When the AI, like the LLMs, are using it, like Grok said that they don't use it, but then I'm seeing conflicting sources. How is there a way to know which AI is using Wikipedia as sources and how often they're refreshing it?
I really am not a good person to ask about how Grokopedia works.
Any LLM.
Just LLMs generally.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my understanding there is that pretty much all of them make use of Wikipedia. I can tell you from my use of ChatGPT and Claude and Grok that sometimes you ask a question, they don't have an answer. You tell them, or a clear answer. So you tell them to look online for an answer. This is the normal procedure that we go through now. And a lot of times the source, sometimes the only clear source that has an answer is Wikipedia. So not only is it trained directly on the contents of Wikipedia, it actually uses it as a backup.
So everything is captured then.
Well, I mean, it looks that way. I think that LLMs are as good and useful as they are because they actually do use a lot of other sources, to be fair, right? And there are a lot of other encyclopedias. I refer to the total collection of all encyclopedias as the encyclosphere. And the Knowledge Standards Foundation has actually collected and represented on a couple of our websites over 60 encyclopedias. So there's a lot more than Wikipedia, and a lot of those can be, and I think are to some extent represented. It's just that they don't have the super long tail that Wikipedia does.
Yeah. Mark, can I say?
Kelly, one more, Kelly. Go ahead.
Just really quick. So I have a 9-year-old son. What could I tell him if, perusing the internet? How do I tell him to find a good source and an unbiased one, to the next generation coming up? I know that's a loaded
It's a good question because I've got a couple of homeschooled boys, and when I was having them do writing assignments when they were 9, I actually had to ask myself this very question. I subscribed to Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm not kidding. It's not a bad idea, and they're good. They are reliable in ways, I suppose, that Wikipedia is not. I think they have their own bias as well, but that's okay. Well, it's not great, but at least they're not as biased as Wikipedia. There's a lot of other sources that can be found. Teachers have collected a lot of good teaching sources. I myself, if you want to look for educational videos, I made a website called watchknowlearn.org. It's just those three words strung together,
Okay.
watchknowlearn.org, and it's a collection of videos. I think it's still being maintained by someone else. But there's actually a lot. That's one of the great things about the internet. But yes, finding the free, high quality resources is always a struggle.
Well, thank you so much.
Kate, Kelly, thank you. All right, we're right at time, but let's take one more. Timothy, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind. After you unmute, go ahead.
Hi, I am a midshipman at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. I'm 20 years old, so I'm a third class midshipman, sophomore.
Awesome.
I'm here in Long Island, New York.
Thanks for your service there.
That's awesome.
Well, I haven't served yet, but thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm in college. But we're on Long Island. We're the Forgotten Academy. We say America's best kept secret of the 5 federal service academies. I would love to ask you guys questions about, maritime policy, because I think for everyone here on this channel, it's not talked about a lot. China has 5,500 flag ships and the U.S. has 80. So if you want to learn more about that, just putting that out there. But my question was more a political question. I
Yes,
look
sir.
at these 2026 midterms. I see a lot of articles. I think I was watching the Chuck Todd podcast the other day, and a lot of articles talking about the most likely Senate races to flip.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are not mentioning New Hampshire and Ohio as much as I might think, given
Mhm.
a track record of Sherrod Brown and then the Sununu family, and
Yes,
also
sir.
the overall political ticket that's brewing in Ohio and New Hampshire, with Kelly Ayotte being the governor, and then Amy Acton or Tim Ryan being solid candidates, and Vivek Ramaswamy is not necessarily a Mike DeWine type. So what do
Yeah.
you think about those 2 Senate races? And also one more thing, and I know it's a lot in the end, but Roy Cooper, why is
Yeah.
he such an electoral juggernaut in North
Yeah.
Carolina?
Timothy, you're a very well-informed young man about those Senate races. Rob and I are sitting here thinking, well, man, Timothy's got the whole thing mastered. But
Yeah,
we'll
he
give it a
does.
try. We'll give it a try. Rob, talk briefly, New Hampshire, Ohio, and North Carolina, and how you see those 3 races.
Yeah, well, Timothy, we think Ohio is going to be so critical. We actually just brought on an Ohio correspondent for the Daily Signal, so we're keeping a very close eye on that Senate race. I do think that Sherrod Brown he faces an uphill battle, but if the tailwinds are at the Democrat side, maybe he's able to pull it off. New Hampshire, I would, I think Republicans obviously have demonstrated they can win statewide there. It's definitely another state to keep an eye on. And then as for North Carolina, I think part of that is the self-inflicted damage that Republicans have done to themselves in that state. They don't necessarily have the best statewide candidates. I mean, Mark Robinson was terrible in the previous election cycle. And so Roy Cooper has benefited probably some of that Republican lack of competition. At the same time, Republicans, obviously have demonstrated that they can carry that state with the 2 U.S. senators they have now. So Trump needs them. He can't afford to lose the Senate if the House is going to be in jeopardy.
So, Timothy, you're asking about 2 states that are currently Republican held and one that's Democratic held, right? And I always tell people that Senate races, they make their own wind and weather. They're not as subject as House races are to the national mood. And you can't judge them until you see how the candidates perform on the stump, in the debates, how they raise money, particularly grassroots fundraising. Jamie Harrison raised over $100 million in a losing race against Lindsey Graham in a very red state, South Carolina. Let's see if any of the 6 nominees in those 3 races, can any of them raise $100 million? That would change the game up. I wouldn't be surprised in the 3 races you cite. I wouldn't be surprised by any outcome. If Sununu won, I wouldn't be surprised if Sununu lost. Cooper won, be surprised, wouldn't be surprised. Brown won, wouldn't be surprised either way. So I think it's impossible to say till we see how those candidates, particularly they raise money, particularly their performance skills. In all 3 races, in North Carolina and in Ohio, a Democrat, in New Hampshire, a Republican. You got old horses. You've got two former senators in North Carolina and New Hampshire. You got a former governor in North Carolina. And you just don't know how the voters will see them. Will they see, well, people say the Sununu brand, legendary brand, John Sununu's going to win. And then some people say, that is yesterday. People aren't going to want the guy who was in the seat to be back. Same with Cooper to some extent, and certainly the same with Brown. So I would say to you today, if you ask me to pick them and just slot them, I'd say I can't tell you about New Hampshire. I think Cooper's going to win until I see Watley, the Republican, is a good candidate. He's a party chair. People say, "Well, he can raise money." I'm not even sure he can. And Ohio, I wouldn't bet on Brown. Wouldn't bet on him because it's become such a red state, and I want to see how competitive the governor's race is. So slotting them, I would say New Hampshire can't say, North Carolina Democrat, which would be a pickup, and Ohio Republican, which would be a hold. That's today, but that's just if you force me. Too soon to say in those three. We got to see how they perform. Thank you for your question, and we're all looking forward to seeing your bright future and what you do. So please stay part of two-way, at least for the next decade.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Have a great night and a great weekend. Larry, couldn't have been more excited to have you here. And as I said when you got here, you're an historic figure. You've created something. It's turned out to be a bit of a monster and is a flawed beast. But you did create something historic, and I wasn't able to read all 7, but I looked at a lot of them, and it's so impressive how you've taken your big brain and your scholarship and applied it to something you created. I was trying to think of an analog for that. I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is. But it's quite something what you've done. So I'm grateful to you for being here, and hope you'll come back and share more, because I know people had more questions. We just ran out of time.
Anytime.
All right, Larry, thank you. And Rob, loved having you here, and hope you'll come back regularly, and remind people again where they can see your content and Daily Signal content.
Yeah, Mark, I'll do that in just a second. I just want to thank you for doing this. Two-Way is an awesome platform. You have a great community that you've built. Love the morning meeting as well with Sean. So yeah, please check out the Daily Signal. DailySignal.com is the website. Sign up for our email newsletters. Follow us on social media, and hope to be back soon.
All right, great. We'll have you back, and really love to have you on. Folks, just to tell you why my hair looks like this and why I'm a little discombobulated, at 5:20 Eastern, I was on a train at Union Station. Claire Danes was on my train. By the way, traveling with no staff, just Claire Danes by herself, but it was Claire Danes. Then at 5:45 Eastern, I was on the Metro, the DC Metro. And then at 5:55, I was in my family's car, picking me up, taking me to here, to a relative's house. So my point is, I'm glad I made it by 5:59:30, but a little discombobulated, and grateful to Katy and Rob and Jack and Larry for patience, and all of you. And sorry we ran a little bit over on a Friday night, but grateful to you all for being part of the two-way community. And we'll see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time on the morning meeting. Thank you. Have a good night, good weekend, and we'll see you then.